안녕하세요, 여러분. For my project, I looked at how Hangul, the Korean writing system, ended up being used by a small community in Indonesia called the Siasia. It is a surprising story because it shows how a writing system can move across cultures and take on a new role. What interests me the most about it was how it wasn't just about linguistics. It was about identity, politics, and a community trying to protect its language. You could also remember it by my first presentation with Kenny, where we previously talked about this topic. To understand why the Siasia chose Hangul, it helps to look at the qualities that make Hangul unique. Hangul didn't just appear naturally. It was designed in the 1400s for people who had no access to literacy. Because of that, the script had a very intentional and learner-friendly structure. Those same qualities later made it attractive to a group outside of Korea. Hangul is often described as scientific because of its design mirrors how the mouth produces sound. Consonants show tongue and lip placement, and vowels follow a simple geometric shapes. Letters combine into syllable blocks, which makes reading more effortless and even for beginners. This matters for the Siasia because a predictable system like Hangul makes it easier to map new sounds. The community didn't need complicated symbols or a long learning curve. They could see how the script worked almost immediately, and that practically set the stage for adoption. Knowing how Hangul works explains why the Siasia saw potential in it, especially when their own language was facing pressure. The Siasia language existed mostly in speech, and younger generations were shifted towards Indonesian language because of the national policy in schooling. Without a writing system, it was harder to teach the language or keep it visible in the public life. Hangul offered a way to write Siasia accurately. It fit their phonology better than Roman letters, and it gave the community a concrete tool for preserving their language. Having script also gave their language legitimacy, something they felt was missing. Once the community recognized that Hangul could help them, the next step was bringing the system into everyday use. The project started in 2009, when Korean linguists visited Bao Bao and showed how Hangul could represent the Siasia sounds clearly. The local government supported it right away. They introduced Hangul classes in schools, printed teaching materials, and even added Hangul to some of the street signs. At first, the project grew quickly. The novelty of the partnership brought by the positive attention to Bao Bao, and many students were excited to write their language for the first time. But the reasons behind the project went deeper than just trying out a new alphabet. They were tied to Indonesia's political landscape. After Indonesia shifted to decentralization, regions gained more control over the cultural and educational policy. Bao Bao wanted to show it was capable of forward thinking. Working with Korean institutions helped the city appear modern and globally connected. So while the project met real linguistic needs, it also supported local political goals. This is why it wasn't driven by things like K-pop and the K-wave. It was regional development strategy shaped by local priorities and identity. Even with strong motivation, the project faced challenges that made the long-term success difficult. The biggest issue was sustainability. There was only one formally trained Hangul teacher, and their funding was eventually stopped. Korean organizations involved in the project disagreed internally, and when the Bao Bao elected a new mayor, political support weakened. The national government stayed mostly silent. Without stable funding, teacher training, or institutional backing, the project slowly stalled. As Crystal argues, language survival needs long-term structures, not just enthusiasm. Still, even though the project didn't really last, it left us with useful lessons. This case shows that writing systems carry more than just sounds. They carry identity, visibility, and power. Hangul worked extremely well as a technical tool for the Siasia, but linguistic success wasn't enough. Language survival depends on political, economic, and educational support. Even so, the Siasia decision to use Hangul show creativity and determination. It proves that communities can look outside of traditional options to protect languages, especially theirs.
So, I do have one question. I'm a little confused about the connection between the Jia people and the Bao that you mentioned later in the slide. I was a little confused about how they were connected.
So yeah, let me clear it up for you. So Baobao is basically the city where most Siasia people live. Is like their home base. The Siasia are the main of the local groups in the city. So that's why Baobao is tied to the language project.
So can you clear up if the Indonesian government was in support of this project or objecting against this project? If so, why?
So the Indonesian government, they didn't fully support it, but they didn't block it either. They were like unsure why the local Indonesian language was using a foreign script instead of like the Roman alphabet, which is tied to the national identity. But at the same time, the project was small and regional, so like national government mostly was like didn't really care or like didn't really see it as a threat, so they weren't as invested in it.
Why did the project stop if it was famous?
Like I explained in the slides, it stopped because the support behind it fell apart. Like the trained teacher left when funding ended, the new mayor didn't really prioritize it, and the Korean groups disagreed with each other. So like, even though it was famous, the project couldn't continue.
In the end, did hunger save the CSC language or was it forgotten?
And not really. Hunger helped for like a moment. It gave like the language visibility and some pride, but it showed that like the sounds could be written clearly, but saving the language long term obviously just needed more support and like continuing involvement. And the script itself wasn't the issue. The problem was like, again, just the main problem, that was the lack of like stable infrastructure. So Hangul did help the CSA language, but it couldn't save the language on its own.